The Prince and Princess of Wales just 8 miles away from Harry.
And did Prince Harry have to warn Windsor Castle that he was on his way? Rupert and I are going to discuss. Hi, all. Welcome to Heirs and Spares, your go to for insight and opinion on two of the most talked about royal couples from both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I'll be bringing you updates on Prince Harry and Meghan right here in California. Although Harry's over there, Rupert.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, the UK's the happy hunting ground now for Prince Harry as he tries to re-establish himself in the eyes of the British public this week. So there's a lot of news, not only about Harry, but about the Princess and Princess of Wales as they try to combat Harry mania.
And you're Rupert Bell.
Oh, and I forgot after all that I'm Rupert Bell, but miracles never cease.
Hey guys, I want to take a minute to tell you about a brand that I really, really love, Peak. They're reimagining wellness with science-backed tea crystals and superfood blends made with the cleanest ingredients. Everything they create is designed to make daily rituals simple and effective, whether for gut health, radiant skin, steady energy, or just feeling your best. For me, hydration was always tricky. I drank plenty of water, tried different electrolytes, and even used the right, very expensive skincare, but still had dry skin, brain fog, and the worst, trouble sleeping. That changed with Peak's deep hydration protocol. In the morning, I take BT Fountain, the beauty electrolyte. It hydrates from within, smooths skin, and gives steady energy. But at night, I wind down with RE Fountain, the calming electrolyte, which has a form of magnesium that just melts tension and helps me sleep deeply without grogginess. What I love most is how clean it is. No sugar fillers or artificial flavors, just ingredients like lemon juice and beetroot. Within a week, my skin looked more hydrated. My focus was sharper. I just felt better. If you want to give it a try, I've got a special link in the show notes for you. It's 20% off for life plus a free gift with my link, peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. Back to the show. All right. So honestly, you said it before I started recording. My rundown is kind of upside down today because we've had so much new news. Let's cruise through some of the lighter stories and the more fun stories really quickly before we get into Harry in the UK. Talk to me about this adorable rugby rivalry between the Prince and Princess of Wales. It was a treat because we got to see both of them over the weekend.
Yeah, and we've got the Women's Rugby World Cup over here. Actually, Canada are one of the favourites for it, but England obviously the hot favourites. Now, the Princess of Wales is patron of the English Rugby Union, while her husband is patron of the Welsh Rugby Union. And in terms of achievements, as far as the Women's Rugby World Cup are concerned, it has to be said the Welsh team haven't distinguished themselves with much glory, while the English team are the favourites. And the Princess of Wales, as we know, a known sports fan and loves all things sports. We've seen her at the tennis. I'm sure she would have kept an eagle eye on events over in Flushing Meadow over the weekend with the finals at the US Open. But she is a huge sports fan, so she had the chance to see her team down in Brighton winning against Australia and meeting the players and having a full day in her role as patron. Whereas I'm not sure William, when he went home, was probably eulogizing about the stories about his team who got beaten by Fiji in Exeter. But they were out and about. But obviously that sort of set up for what, as you can see, Kinsey, is a bit of an interesting week as who's trying to win the PR battle. Is it William and Catherine, or is it Harry? So there's a lot at stake here, and we've seen some of that already unraveling as we record this, as we go into the week. I think it's going to be an interesting PR sort of, I don't know, showdown. Is that a strong word? Between the brothers.
Yeah, I think that is a strong word because I think Prince William is, like I thought earlier today when I was thinking about all this, just how convenient it is that he has such a full schedule because he can easily say, I'm too busy. You know that our schedules are made in advance. I don't have the time. I mean, I don't even think I have heard that there's no communication whatsoever. But in the eyes of the public, we're going to see Prince William out and about throughout the week. Today, we saw him in Sunningdale, honoring his late grandmother. This is the third anniversary of her passing that we're speaking on. Tuesday, he's heading to London. He's going to visit Spiral Skills. That's an organization for young people. And they've received support from his Homewards campaign. And then Wednesday, he's going to mark World Suicide Prevention Day with a visit to a mental health hub. So if you're just a regular royal watcher, you might look at that and go, well, I'm seeing him back to back to back. He's just busy. He's just a busy guy. I don't think that he would ever try to compete with Prince Harry because I honestly think that Prince Harry is so in the rearview mirror, which is sad to say out loud.
Yes, and it's interesting though that Sunningdale appearance. I believe the Princess of Wales wasn't
Yes.
slated to appear,
Yeah.
so that's an interesting move. But Sunningdale, given where they live, they could do the school run and drive to Sunningdale on the way back. They're in very close proximity, so
But
it's an
that's also
easy
been
one.
a campaign we've talked about. There's
Uh,
been criticism over that. And you and I have pushed back on that criticism that yes, perhaps doing royal engagements close to home is beneficial for this family that prioritizes family. Why would we criticize these people that are working smarter versus harder or risking their lives by having to jump on and off of helicopters so that they can get back home to put the kids to bed? I mean, I know that there's going to be some of that commentary going around that they were real close to home, but also how interesting that around the same time Prince Harry's 8 miles away visiting his grandmother and grandfather's grave at Windsor Castle.
yeah, but actually, going to the Women's Institute was something, and bearing in mind that this day as we record this, it's 3 years since the death of his grandmother. So it's a hugely significant day in just the family's life. Forget the nation's life, but actually, remembering when you lose your grandparents is something that every family remembers. So to go and honour the Women's Institute, which the late Queen, was a huge and avid supporter of, I think and the fact that the Princess of Wales comes along, I think it adds a degree of credibility to it. And then you hear nice stories that obviously they're doing their darndest to try and keep Louis under control. And one of the clips that I've just seen, that obviously he's an absolute terror at home, and poor old Charlotte is the one who is always deemed having to try and manage the younger brother. So sounds like they've got any old family with three kids. One of them's unruly, one's trying to placate, and George is probably just going around. I'll leave them to it. I can imagine what goes on in the amongst the children, and but that sounded like any other normal family discussion. But it is interesting. You just look at the bare facts. There, she wasn't due to come, but she has done an easy one. And then, as you say, William has already planned. But then you come back to the Harry side of it. Going to Well Child, we always known about, and we've seen him there. And he looks comfortable on that stage. He hasn't got Meghan around to be a distraction, and he's able just to get on and around people that he's very familiar with. And he
Mm-hmm.
looked comfortable. Now, do we call it, though, a quasi-royal tour? He comes into Windsor. He's given the protection which is causing him all this grief. There is a security personnel greeting him. And this is where I get driven nuts by Harry. He's never going to have a problem with security if he briefs people about what's going on in this country. And I think that's the frustration. But it's great that he's gone to Well Child. And then he's doing things in Nottingham and other places around the country. Hence the reason why I say there will be, well, Harry, whether we like it or not, William doing this. If you just look at the bare facts of this, William's going to be there. There'll be pictures of Harry's there, and it will be showing, look, they're not coming together. You can't get away from the narrative that will be seen in this country as to how it plays out. And then, of course, you've got the King, 500 miles, up in Scotland, quietly remembering the death of his mother, which is very much the royal modus operandi. You think the Queen used to remember her father's death in Sandringham, where he died. And so for the king, being in Balmoral is a part of the same sort of family symbolism when they lose their parents.
So I asked a contact at Windsor how the process works for Prince Harry to come in to see the Queen, because if you or I just rolled up, there's no way they'd be like, no, sure, come on in, unless you would have to purchase a ticket to tour the castle, and then you're no pictures are allowed, and then you're asked to just quickly walk by. You could take a moment but quickly walk by, so it's such a different experience unless you're a member of the royal family. I wanted to know if he had to give them advance because similar to you, I don't believe that Harry's ultimate concern is security. He has to give Ravik 28 days notice and a copy of his itinerary, and then they determine based on that itinerary, the dates and the if there are any credible threats against him, what level of security he's going to get. And 9 out of 10 times, it's the security that he wants. I think it's a control thing that Prince Harry just doesn't like to share details about anything that's going on. So that's why I was curious to know how the process of him getting into St. George's Chapel works. And they said that there are three ways it can happen. He can call them up and say, like in advance, and say, I'd like to visit the Queen at this date. I think the likelihood of that happening is, I mean, this is a guy that loves secrets. They said he could step off the airplane and say, I'm 10 minutes away, and they would rally, which I think is more likely. And they said, honestly, Prince Harry can pull up in the Range Rover and say, hi, it's me. And they'll open the gates and let him in. So I was curious to know if he'd given them, and I'll find out if he'd given them any advance as to whether or not he was going to be there. Because I just think at the end of the day, the security thing is he's so angry that he's not as treated as an equal, which, you saw the reports over the weekend of Paul Burrell in his new book talking about how Meghan, I know, but in his new book talking about how Meghan was livid over seeing Catherine's home in Kensington
Will
Palace.
he just shut
But you know
up?
what? It's true. I think she probably did look at Catherine moves into Princess Margaret's old house, and they did do renovations. But if it was Princess Margaret's, that it was
Yeah.
just gorgeous. And then she moves into a gorgeous, sweet little humble cottage right outside. I'm sure that there was real resentment there. But I just think that Harry is a control freak, and I think that it's ego. I want what he has, and I think that it's also this desperate cry for public sympathy that I don't have time for. Like, move out of your victimhood, buddy.
Yeah, and also, a secret visit that we seem to all know about,
Classic.
um, which is an A1 move from the Harry team. So it's out there. Look, he's absolutely every right as a family member to go and pay his respect to his late grandmother. And you're quite right. If he rocks up at the door, not totally unannounced, there may have been a call from the airport saying, look, he's on his way. What can you do? And then there would have been people running around, not in a high state of flux, but just saying, okay, right, this is, when's he getting here? What do we need to do? Shut it off for 10 minutes. He can have his 10 minutes. And then off he goes to whichever hotel he's staying in London, ahead of changing before he goes and has turned up at the World Child Awards ceremony. So I get why he's done it. Again, you deep down, he's hopefully he's doing it for the right reasons. But again, it's all just him trying to manipulate the sympathy vote for him. Look, he wants to build these bridges with the royal family, and here he is paying respects to the Queen when basically he and his wife gave the late Queen a lot of angst in her latter days.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because that's what upset me too. We've heard so much about that over the last few months, thanks to Sally Bedell Smith and Lady Elizabeth Anson. Lady Elizabeth Anson repeating to Sally Bedell Smith some of her conversations with the late Queen Elizabeth and how she felt so defeated around the time of the wedding because she was so excluded, to the point where Prince Harry had to sit down and write her a letter and explain a lot of the decisions that they'd made. the Tom Bauer story was recirculating over the weekend about how the Queen said she was so grateful that Meghan Markle didn't show up to Prince Philip's funeral, which I do believe is likely something. Thank goodness Meghan's not here.
Mm.
As something I think that that's likely that did happen. Um, and so I am constantly reminded. Oh, and then I saw a new report, although you might hear that some of it I read and thought, I don't know if this is new. This seems familiar to me, but Tom Sykes from the Daily Beast goes into detail about how Prince William and the others sitting on the tarmac in the plane on the day that the Queen passes, they sit on the tarmac for over an hour because they're trying to determine whether or not Prince Harry is going to show up and go with them. And I don't know where the confusion is because Prince Harry tells us in Spare that he messages William and says, "Can I get a ride with you?" And there's no answer. So yeah, a lot, you think about all of the hurt and all of the ways that Harry, even in the fact that Prince William didn't get to say goodbye to his grandmother, all the ways that he hurt other members of his family. Yes, it's nice that he went to visit his grandmother, but I shouldn't have read about him alone with her body in Spare.
Mhm.
And he should have been more thoughtful of her twilight years as he sat down with Oprah Winfrey. He should have been more considerate about the way that his actions would hurt her. It's hard to digest this as just a sweet, simple gesture when you think about all the hurt that he caused. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
But the problem is he's unaware because he doesn't think he's done anything wrong. And therein lies the problem. He thinks he's Mr. Perfect and it's everybody else's fault. Even, but he's fully entitled, whatever that, maybe on his own, he's had his quiet moments and hopefully at that time he can sort out that he can make sure his recollections don't vary so much in future from the rest of the royal family. And so it is for the family, I'm sure they're all marking it in very different ways. And, seeing the Prince and Princess of Wales out doing their thing. We haven't seen anything of the King, or I'm unaware, and unlikely we will, because I'm sure he's quietly in Scotland, just taking time, maybe going to church, whatever, to remember his mother. But I feel that this is going to be this week, and when we come to talk next week, we will have seen quite a. I will be interesting to see how this plans out from a PR perspective this week. I can't. My gut feeling is my radar's not working very well on this, but I hope William just gets on, head down, does what he has to do, and that Harry is. I know he may be having meetings about the Invictus Games, reconnecting with some of the things that he's involved with here. But we have to remember back in the day, before Meghan came along and scuppered it for him, he was good at this stuff. And
Mhm.
that's at the heart of it. He was good at it. People did like him there. He did but unfortunately, his brain has been fuddled. And that's why I think we've been hearing, and I don't know whether you agree, this thing's about he wants to reconnect with the UK because he's ruddled us back home and he's missing what he was good at and comfortable with. And suddenly, as we've said before, that grass ain't greener on the other side. And I think he's
Or
missing
or beach sand.
or beach sand. It's been a drought over here. The grass is finally growing here. Maybe Harry
I
in
hope it's
his smelling the roses for the first time.
I hope it's greener outside of Windsor Castle because the last time I was at Windsor Castle, it was all brown, and I was like, "Mm,
Oh, no, we're fine now. We've had a bit of rain. The
okay."
grass is a great recoverer. So Windsor Castle, I'm sure, will be looking magnificent. There are plenty of people obviously tending to the lawn, but yes, we have had a drought, so everything's looked parched. But it doesn't take long for a bit of rain to bring the green
Spring it
back.
up.
But
I wanted to
spring,
ask you. I pulled this quote from because you mentioned that article about Prince Harry wanting to spend more time in the UK. Harry's itinerary, which will be covered by select media considered friendly towards the prince. You know, this is why I always try to point out that positive press is usually a result of the outlet wanting access. Um, you were talking about the PR. How are we
yeah,
going to be evaluating this next week? Well, Harry goes out of his way to just pick the butt kissers to follow
yep,
him around. And Also, I wonder if it's too little too late. Like you said, he's meeting with the Scotty's Little Soldiers team. He's meeting with the Invictus Games. There's a very short list of people he's meeting with because a lot of his charities aren't working with him anymore. I mean, thank God for Well Child. Thank God for Scotty's. Thank God for the Invictus Games. Senabale is out. What happened to African Parks Charity, which is in the throes of scandal? You know, and really, he's going to get a couple of really nice write ups in People Magazine and Marie Claire and some of those um, friendly outlets. But I don't think it's going to change public perception in the UK. I think they are so hurt by the way he treated the late Queen.
Yeah, and there is this feeling that he does want to completely control the narrative. Yet William and his wife, they can't control the narrative because you're already, whether you agree or not, people are saying, isn't it funny that he's suddenly out there working the week that Harry is? So you've seen people saying that, and
The
that's
kids are
what
back
it's
in
also,
school, idiots.
yeah. But well, we said it before. They're back at school, but he's out on the road again, and he's doing the things that he cares about, the homelessness, and so it's not as if he's suddenly gone. Oh, this is we said it, but he will be visible because we've said he's got to be seen to be visible because that it's the time now to get back out there. It's the opportunity. The kids are back at school, and it looks like his wife is recovering in a positive way and is happy to be back out on the stage much more often. Um, Even if we are discussing whether that was whatever the talk about the hair and everything, which is complete and utter
Yeah, I don't think I've said
balderdash.
the word idiots enough on today's
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
Idiots.
Well, anyway, so this is it. We'll see this. This is part of interesting to see how it plays out from a PR perspective. I hope William, head down, get on with it. Never just get on, do what's good. You know, no, no ifs, buts, or maybes. Be seen, be good, enjoy, and look a positive spin. What Harry do, he will be trying to control it really and say, look, you miss me. That will be his mantra. Look how much you miss me. I'm such a golden asset to this royal family. You miss me. That will be what he will be trying to drum home
But do you
this
think it's
week.
too little too late? Too little too shouldn't I mean
Um,
I'm grateful that he shows up and he brings a huge check. But he should have done this 4 years ago. He should have done it 3 years ago. He should have done it 2 years ago. He's done
yeah.
it. This feels like a last ditch effort, desperation. I have nothing to do in California. I'm twiddling my thumbs. I'm learning how to surf with 12-year-olds. That's what this
Yeah.
feels like. I miss having a purpose. My wife is trying to shill jam. God, for the love of God, please somebody give me something to do. I don't think this looks authentic, genuine. Harry really wanting to get back in and finish his mother's legacy. I think this is a guy whose polo show sucked. No one watched Live to Lead. No one cared about his very well done and kind and Heart of Invictus docuseries. That's the reality. That's what I feel when I watch him do this. It's like a desperate PR grab, and it just reeks of someone who's lost.
Well, we know he's lost. And so this is a quasi royal tour, as if it's been,
Timu, Timu.
it would actually, you look at who he's seeing, you'd be thinking, well, let's see if he was working for the royal family, he'd be doing these things anyway. But he's now doing it saying, as I say, how much you miss me. And it is a desperate urge to, because in America, what do they want? Is the Duke of Sussex is not relevant. Over here, it sort of means something, and he is part of the royal family. So he is he's clutching at straws because he's a rudderless 40-something-year-old who basically is in the shadow of his wife, who admittedly isn't hitting the ground running with her stuff that she's doing and is I did enjoy that article you sent me, written by that person about what Meghan needs to do. There's some quite funny things in that, but I don't know whether we got time to talk about that. But anyway, for Harry, this is a big week. So it will be interesting when we come, how we review it and assess it next week. Will we see it as just a cynical effort by Harry to prove that, you have missed me and how will the rest of the royal family just get on and just say, well, so be
We
it. We'll just crack
well,
on and leave him to his own devices.
to your point, this story kind of fits what you're saying and what we've been discussing with Prince William. We did see Prince William on Eugene Levy's um, new trailer for The Reluctant Traveler, and he's joking about getting drunk with Eugene. Prince William is. And it's Harry and Meghan that are in Hollywood. Like, how is that not Prince Harry's cameo? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I think of course, I think if you have the option, realistically, you'd rather be with the future king. But doesn't it feel like Prince Harry's team is dropping the ball? Because that seems like something that should go, that just seems like a no-brainer to me, that you would put Prince Harry in those positions to try to be like the funny guy teaching us a little bit about history and culture, because he's out there, he's in Hollywood, he's accessible. I mean, no, I'm
Uh,
so glad that it's Prince. I'm so happy it's One Pint Willie. I think that that's better for Prince William. But I look at this and I think major fail for Prince Harry and his team. You guys are supposed to, you married the actress.
yeah, but here's the thing for this program, and I must admit, he's got a lovely manner. The presenter, what he was in Schitt's Creek. What does he
Yeah.
call it? Shit
Yeah.
Creek. Or anyway, great title for a program. I think I've pronounced it on. Have I pronounced it correctly or not?
Yes, you did.
Yeah. Well, great title for a program because actually what it proves is Harry is up creek, to use the other expression, because I find it quite charming, that this guy has gone and Windsor and the bucket list phenomenon of the program. So I'll look forward to seeing the extended cameo of that if he did have just his one pint, and then we see the legless William walking out because he's had one pint, well, just one pint. So I absolutely agree that for William, it's and you can almost see him going, I'm with an A-lister here. My brother can't drum up anything like this because has this program come out or is it just
This is a
available now?
teaser. This is a teaser
Right.
for the new season.
Well, with your Hollywood insider information, you'll know. So it'll be coming out in due course and will be, I think, the whole series looks actually quite fun. And it's something, when I look at a trailer that, forget the Harry bit, I hadn't seen, or William bit, I hadn't seen any of it. Actually, was quite charmed by that was a good trailer for a program. And
Yeah.
when we go back to other trailers for cooking programs, this seemed infinitely superior, infinitely more entertaining, and infinitely feeling like you might want to watch it.
Yeah. September 19th is when that
Yeah.
comes out. So it does give us something to look forward to. I'm sure we'll watch and dissect Prince William in that, because one of the big takeaways, I think, for me is that one of the misconceptions, uh, especially people that follow Prince Harry have in the States
Mm.
about Prince William, is that he's stern, angry, serious. And that's because they're reading Spare and dog bowls are
Yeah.
flying and necklaces are breaking. And the reality is, when I've ever been around him, he's animated, he's funny, he's light, he's enjoying himself, he's making the people around him feel comfortable and laughing. Like, I think that this shows a perfect representation of that. And I think he's a lot like his mother in the best ways possible, where I point at Prince Harry and say, a lot like your mom in the worst ways possible. Paranoid.
And actually, it's quite interesting. Part of the royal family's brief is it's a big tourist attraction.
Mhm.
Funnily enough, he's appearing in what should be which is designed to bucket list places to go around the world. Well, the royal family create the interest. How did you discover your interest in the royal family? Because it was something and you got hooked on it. For William to do that, it's a very sensible, savvy PR move because it's ticking all the boxes. It's about the royal family. We're a big tourist attraction. We drive a huge amount for our economy through the royal family, and William is going to be the heart. And if he can connect with someone who's going to have a big audience in a very natural way, That is the PR people or the advisors within the Buckingham Palace or Kensington Palace would have said, "Ah, this is a no-brainer. Let's have a bit of fun here, because it'll make us look human." And that isn't
Absolutely.
that, and that's sometimes is level. That there's not enough. The king can't suddenly invite him around. Although we occasionally do see him walking on the Scottish moors and suddenly talking to some slightly bewildered walkers who say, "Oh, that's the king." Which I think is one of the great. And occasionally he walks the streets of London suddenly talking to people. But in a controlled environment, that was a very good PR move on behalf of William.
I just remembered something that I think is important to clarify before we move on. And I know you've got somewhere else to be, so I'll be quick. But the reason that they said one of the reasons said that the plane was held up for Prince Harry was because Prince Harry fought to bring Meghan, and Meghan wanted to go. And I remember this happening, but I don't know if I knew what was going on behind the scenes. Remember when the Queen we were told that the queen was ill before we knew she was gone. I mean, they
Yeah.
for a long, for hours we were reporting on her being ill, not realizing she had already passed. And Harry and Meghan to force the hand of the family, and I remember having to report on this, having to say because they released a press release or released something to media saying Meghan was on her way with Prince Harry. Do you remember having to report that too? Meghan is on her way with Prince Harry. Well, so in this Tom Sykes piece, he talks about how that was intentional. Harry and Meghan trying to force Meghan out there, and that then Harry goes into it in spare and says his father said this, and this about Meghan. And then when he says, well, Catherine's not going to be there, then Harry goes, well, that's all you had to say. But the king listed off all the reasons they did not want Meghan there.
Mm.
And that just fires me up all over again, thinking about the poor queen and Prince William missing the chance to say goodbye.
Well, what's more importantly, I understand why Catherine stays there because I think, again, if you take the way okay, it's on a grand scale. We got planes flying left, right, and centre. But in other families, suddenly you go, right, what happens again, take it away from the royal family. A grandmother dies. How do you cope with the family? You've then got small children. What do you do?
And they were
Right.
just starting a new school.
Yeah.
Remember, they
So
just moved.
Catherine is probably saying, I'll stay here. I'll be there for the three children. Yes, they could have dumped them with nannies and whatever, and they would have been there. But Catherine's just saying, micromanaging, saying, I'll be there for the children. There'll be plenty of opportunity for us to mourn and remember. You get up there and do whatever you have to do. And I absolutely get that. But Harry, was thinking it's all about Meghan. No, it was never about Meghan. It was about the Queen. And if the King decided, as he was then, that we're just going to have family members, not wives, not spouses, then so be it. Amongst so I think he knew that Meghan would be a problem because she'd want to be center stage. And
Mm-hmm.
look at me,
Right. Exactly. And that they couldn't keep any secrets. I mean,
no.
that's why when Prince Harry finally does arrive there after booking a private flight,
Mm.
he's left to dine with Prince Andrew. And the king and Prince William have gone off to be alone because they know
Yeah.
they can't trust this guy. They know they can't, they don't want him to hear any of their plans. They don't want him,
Mm.
they
Yeah.
know they can't trust it. I also remember not too long ago reading an article about a lip reader seeing Prince Harry, maybe it's at the coronation, sitting
Mm.
down next to one of the York girls saying, I can't believe no one called me. I believe that. I
Yeah.
believe no one called you.
Uh,
I can believe it.
I never take any blind bit of notice of these lip reading articles, but I know because everyone does. And you think, but I'm sure that there was a lot going on behind the scenes. But actually, and as we remember the Queen, it just was a sort of unedifying stage as in the immediate aftermath of the news of her death that we could see the slight unease within the family. But actually, once that kerfuffle had been done and been dealt with, it then became a great way, and we saw the outpouring, through the Westminster Abbey and, in the house when she lay in state, the crowds that turned up for that. I think we were all surprised because we didn't actually know how it was going to unfold over the next 10 days, but it was an amazing time, once we got over that, and of course we did have that walk in Windsor, which obviously is much analysed, but it almost like you
And
need to come out.
instigated by the Prince of Wales. We should
Yeah,
mention instigated by Prince
yeah,
William because Harry and Meghan were apparently going to do a rogue
yeah,
walk. And
yeah,
he said, no, you're not. We will, you can come meet us and we'll do it as a united front for our grandmother.
yeah. And we're in control here. You're not, because you know that they would be making it look at how wonderful we are and making it a great, and Meghan, with no one controlling her, would have given it the full beans. But
And you
anyway,
know what? You know what? There were Netflix cameras around.
yeah,
So
I,
that
yeah,
I mean, that was big of Prince William and Catherine to trust them. And, as briefly as that moment was, knowing that Harry and Meghan were documenting everything, literally everything for
yeah,
their docu-series where they slander the family left and right. Also,
yeah.
really quickly, I just want to say to your point about Catherine staying back with the children, I also got the sense seeing Catherine with Prince William today at the Women's Center that not only was she there to support the Queen and women, but she was there to support
Mm,
Prince William. Like I really
yeah.
felt like she wanted to be there to. He doesn't need it, but I felt like she was there to support him, knowing that this was going to be a difficult, maybe potentially a difficult day, knowing Prince Harry's
Mm.
lingering.
Well, I think there's that, and also he was deeply fond of his grandmother. He
Mm-hmm.
talked about that statement that I read, where he said she was there for the happiest times in my life, and she was there for the saddest times of my life, and that would probably be, when you think, for all the kerfuffle, was around the time of her death of his mother,
Mm-hmm.
and William was, bereft, and the Queen was the person who tried to say protect. And that when you think about what that was all about, the reason they sort of bunkered down, because the Queen suddenly took the human side of it and actually saying, I'm here. They've lost their mother as their grandmother. I'm here to look after my grandchildren. And she just became a family member. But of course, it wasn't straightforward around the time of Diana's death because the country went into an outpouring of grief like we've never seen before in a country that was renowned for being stiff upper lipped, but suddenly is um, an emotional. I don't mean basket case because that sounds flippant, but you know what I mean. We were emotionally, a lot great where it hit everybody very hard because I'm sure anyone of a certain age, if you ask them where they were when they heard the news, they will tell you exactly what they were doing. And, aren't many times that happens in people's lives.
Agree. All right. Well, do you agree with us or disagree with us? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Rupert, I can already tell I'm probably in trouble because the video that's going up on the Queen's anniversary is about Diana. So I'm just going to say right now, if you're still watching, Rupert and I filmed this on the day to remember the Queen. I'm sorry it's coming out a day later. We probably should have filmed this last week so we could have honored the Queen on the Queen's Day, but I film a day earlier
Yeah.
than you guys see the stuff. So I apologize to the audience who I'm sure is very frustrated.
Well, whatever. What will be, will be. We've given them our view of current events,
Yeah.
and they are ever changing in this royal landscape. And this week will be an interesting one for royal watchers. I, by the way, am off to Germany to cover some show jumping. So there we go.
Oh wow.
But, needs must. So that's what I'm doing. But I'll be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for you next Monday, if that's all right.
Perfect. I think I will be talking to you from New York that day.
Well, sadly, then I will be traveling to New York on the Thursday of next week. So
Miss each
I
other.
would,
Miss
well, there we go.
connections.
Anyway, yeah, look, it's been fun chatting away. We've missed some interesting subjects. There was that article about Meghan, who
We'll
wrote
have to
that
get
article.
back to it. I don't think it's going
Ah,
anywhere.